Well, just a couple of weeks ago, I was in our confirmation class with the 7th and 8th graders, and we were talking, and I asked them to think about what gifts do the confirmation class have to share with the rest of the congregation. Some of the confirmation students that are here actually looked at me like, us have gifts for the whole congregation? But then they went with it, and they started to think about what characteristics and gifts do they have as young people in our church that they think could be a blessing to the whole congregation. So they said, inclusiveness, youthfulness, involvement with other congregations. The middle schoolers and the high schoolers in our congregation have a joint ministry with 4 other Lutheran congregations in D.C. They also said that one of their gifts is that they're friends with people in other congregations, not just the other Lutheran congregations, but some of them know folks who are members of Hil Havara, for example, the Jewish community here on Capitol Hill. Some other gifts that they said they have to share with the whole congregation are respect for one another, curiosity, a welcoming sense. There's one girl in our confirmation class who goes to a church that is too small, so they don't have a confirmation program. So our kids have welcomed her into our confirmation program. And finally, they said that one of the gifts they have to share with the whole congregation is that they have fun and games. And so I asked them for an example of that. And Paul Medina, one of our acolytes today, said, well, we can tell jokes. So he told us a joke, and he said I could share it with you all today. There was a man that was walking up to God and asks God, is it true that for you 1,000 years are like a minute? And God said, yeah. And then the man says, well, is it true then too that $1 million is like a penny to you? Yeah, says God. Well, says the man, can you give me a penny? And God says, in a minute. It was very funny. So thank you, Paul. Thank you, confirmands, for the gifts that you bring to the whole congregation. In fact, we are all salt and light. These are characteristics that our young people have in our congregation just by who they are as children of God. You also, Church of the Reformation, are all salt and light in your communities and in your families and in this congregation as well. Just think back the last couple of weeks in your own personal lives. How have you shared a word of encouragement or a kind smile to someone along your way or at work? Maybe you've been particularly loyal to a family member or friend, setting aside time for them when they needed an extra bit of time for listening or just for rejoicing or going out for a happy hour after work. Maybe in your work, in the last couple of weeks, you were particularly diligent and careful in what you were doing, advancing the work of your whole organization and your co-workers as well. Maybe, like many of us, you said prayers for other people in this congregation or in your family members or in the community. Maybe you politicked or protested in the last couple of weeks. Maybe you made and kept some promises. All of those ways are ways that you've been salt and light in the world. And here at Church of the Reformation, as a congregation, we've been doing so much in so many tiny ways that have made such a mark in our world today. We hosted a great concert honoring Martin Luther King Jr. here with some of the choir members and our director, Paul Levitt. We hosted folks that were visiting for the inauguration. One elderly woman came to the inauguration from Queens, New York, and she was so hoping to be able to get inside the security perimeter, but she got separated from her family members. But she got to the church. And here she was able to watch, live streamed on TV, the inauguration of our current president. The next day, we hosted thousands of people. We think about 2,000 people came in through our doors during the Women's March. And they were from all over the country as well. And we have been receiving thank you letters and email messages from people all across the country thanking us for our hospitality that day. Just opening up the doors and showing them where the bathroom and the coffee was. One of the people that visited us that day is Olivia Dowd. She's from Brooklyn, New York. And in her thank you note, which she wrote a whole page, I'm just going to read a few excerpts from. In making my decision to go to the Women's March this past Saturday, I took a chance. I haven't done anything like this in 45 years, but it's like putting a needle back on a record to continue where I left off, because this march defines me and who I am. I walked 30 minutes from RFK to the march, but my body couldn't do it anymore. I was exhausted. I'm 63 years old and recovering from chemotherapy and radiation. But then I saw your church, and I knew that that was where I had to go. I told my group to go on without me. I walked up your steps, and the priest was there and greeted us with directions to water and restrooms. I just felt like I was in the right place. I sat, and I met people from all across the United States, grandmothers, mothers, their children. I saw women my age and young and old women. In your church, I was treated with such genuine love and kindness and sincerity, and there is no pill to make a healing balm like what everyone in your church gave me. I was offered food. I felt like I was in a safe haven, like Harriet Tubman might have stopped at to regroup before moving on. And that's what you provided me. I couldn't have had the experience that I did on Saturday without you and your church opening up its doors to me and to so many hundreds of others. It was the true essence of sisterhood and brotherhood, unconditional love. That's just one of the things. That same week, we welcomed refugees into our community. We welcomed a family from Afghanistan, helped them settle into their own apartment, and now they have smiles on their faces as they're comfortable and happy and safe in the home that we've helped provide them. And then another team in our congregation started up their ministry this past couple weeks. We have a group of mostly young adults, but pulling folks from every generation to provide childcare for the homeless families in the hotels along New York Avenue as part of the ministry with the Children's Homeless Playtime Project. So if you get our email every week, you'll have seen a whole series of photographs that were taken of our members playing with about 25 homeless children, playing board games and drawing pictures, and then they also had a cardboard cutout of the Snoopy dog house. And they were all able to decorate the Snoopy dog house together. The folks at the Children's Playtime Project sent us words of thanksgiving and appreciation because they couldn't provide this ministry without our congregation's support. We've also going to continue to support the food pantry today after worship, as you've heard. We serve about 3,000 people every year through that ministry. And because we do that, folks come into contact with our congregation, and we are able to help some of them even take more steps into housing and to leave homelessness and other signs of poverty behind. Now, I want to remind you of all these things because this is what Church of the Reformation does just because the light of Christ is shining here. We don't have to become salt. We already are salt and light because of Christ's blessing and call to us. It's part of who we are as the discipleship community following Jesus on the way. And also, while you might be scattered like the grains of salt across a meal or across a field, we are salt together. When Jesus says to his disciples, "You are salt of the earth," it's a plural you, the second person plural. You all together are salt of the earth and light of the world. That salt is tiny and small, but it changes everything that it touches. That light is dispersed throughout the darkness. But because it is dispersed, things that are present are able to be seen by people because of the light. In fact, it reminds me of this quote by Margaret Mead, that great anthropologist and sociologist. "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Because of our blessing and call by God, we do have the opportunity to make a huge impact upon our city, nation, and world. But there's also a challenge that Jesus has for us in the gospel today, and I wonder how you hear those challenges, how salt could lose its saltiness, or how the light could be hid under a bushel basket. To me, I sometimes think about how we, as Church of the Reformation, could lose our saltiness by sheer exhaustion, by doing things so much and so often that we become, in fact, disconnected from the source of our energy. Or that we don't shine the light in our community by telling other people what's going on in this congregation and inviting them to join the ministries that we have here. You might find that there are other challenges to Church of the Reformation that would make us lose our energy or lose our saltiness. And I invite you to consider that over the next week. But especially today, I want you to know and affirm that you are salt and light in this community and across the world. Jesus blessed his disciples in some surprising ways. He said that blessed are those who are poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek or the gentle. May we go out into our community, finding those who are mourning, those who are poor in spirit, those who are meek. May we be a blessing to them as Christ has been a blessing to us. Amen.